It's eclipse season, and you know what I decided that means? Magical Reawakening Radio is back. Feels good to be back. It's been a little while. Things got busy, things got shifted, I don't know, things just got to a point where it wasn't quite right for me to be recording on the regular, and things are shifting again because it's eclipse season and it's Virgo season and it's back to school season. And all of those things have meant that I now am reshifting and prioritizing and going, you know what? I got time for recording again. I've missed talking on a podcast and I've missed showing up in this way. So I'm very excited to be back. Now, my plan this time around, we'll see if it sticks, is to do a podcast so that it releases pretty much the Friday before the next major moon. So I am recording this on September 4th, which is a Thursday, so that I can upload it tomorrow on the 5th, which is a Friday, because we have our full moon, which is a Pisces full moon, because we are in Virgo season and it's the opposite, right? And so that happens on the 7th, and it happens to be the lunar eclipse for our current eclipse cycle that we're in. And then 2 weeks later, we'll have a solar eclipse on the new moon in Virgo. And it's kind of fun because this is the second new moon we're having in Virgo. We had one at the very beginning of Virgo season, like when the sun moved into Virgo. We had a new moon that day. And guess what? We're going to have a new moon, and then the sun is going to ingress into Libra. And so it's just like we've got these new moon bookends during eclipse season. It's kind of fun. We'll see what that plays out for. So that's the plan. So here I am back doing Magical Reawakening Radio, and I'm so glad you're here with me. So, full moon, Pisces full moon, eclipse season. Let's talk about it. So, I love eclipses. And I say that because I also love the Death card and I love the Tower card, which most people probably think is a very interesting, I'll say interesting, stance to take. But for me, I believe that change is just a part of life, right? It is inevitable for us to hit towers season type things. It's inevitable for cycles to end, okay? I think they're fun. I think that if you know it's coming, you can prepare for it. That matters to me, okay? Right. I am a tarot reader. I am a hobby astrologist, okay? I want to know the cycles. I want to know when things are going to shift. I want to know that that's happening because then I want to know what I can do to make it better for myself. How can I take advantage of these shifts? How can I handle the fact that it's going to be changing, right? If you choose to ignore the shifts as they happen, it could be fine. It could be messy. It could be all sorts of things, right? We'll figure it out. Okay. I've gone through plenty of eclipse seasons without knowing that it was eclipse season, and it's fine. It's fine. Maybe things take you unaware. It's fine. But when I do take advantage of knowing that there is the potential to actually shift things, then it's like, okay, I know the tide is turning. Let me turn with the tide rather than not realizing it and then potentially exhausting myself swimming against it. Right? That's what I'm saying. So I want you to also have the ability to take advantage of these shifts. Right? Right. Okay, what's actually happening in the sky, right? Let's start with that. So first, we have a full moon. When we have a full moon, it means that the moon is fully reflecting back the light of the sun, right? All of the moon gets all of that. There's no shadow. Except we're now having the Earth pass in between the moon and the sun. And during that time, we are not getting the sun's rays onto the moon. And so we end up with this glowing red moon instead, right? Because we're still getting a little bit of bend around it. So it's not, a completely dark night. We can still tell that the moon's there, but it's not getting the full brightness of the sun. Okay. And the thing is, when we go through the cycles, when we think about the moon, okay, here's the moon card. Okay. We have the moon. When the moon is at its brightest, we can actually see pretty far on the ground around us, okay? And the moon card is actually the card associated with Pisces, our sign that the moon is in for this full moon, okay? Now, the moon card itself is like the intuition card. The High Priestess is our card associated with the moon, and that is also very much about intuition, right? And so then we can look at the moon card itself and we know it's about intuition, but we also know it's about cycles. And it's about the fact that sometimes the moon is not as bright as it could be. Sometimes we have new moon, dark moon time, right? We have dark moon, we have full moon, and then, we vary between the two. So sometimes we can see really far without electric lights on. If we were in a space where there's no electric lights around us, if the moon is full, we can see actually pretty far. If the moon is not full, if it's a dark moon, or if we have an eclipse, we can't see very far anymore. And we're back to just trusting that we can put one foot in front of the other and not get off track of where we're going, right? We've got all this water, there's a bunch of water on the moon card, and then there's this path that leads between these two towers, and the towers are the towers of the unknown. We don't know what's beyond that because we can still only see so far, even when the moon is super full and bright, okay? And so when we think about the moon card, and then if suddenly we can't see, now we don't know how to get to even that spot where the unknown path is. We can only see little bits. So it's like when we normally have a full moon, we tend to have rituals around like being able to say, oh, we've completed this cycle. Oh, let's see what our intuition has brought us. Oh, let's appreciate where we've been and how far we've come. And now that light is not there for a short period of time during the night. And when that happens, it gives us a pause because it's like, okay, what is still needing to be completed? Is this cycle actually done? What is the other side of this coin? And can I still trust myself to keep going, even though I thought I was done? Okay. And so with this eclipse coming, it's one of those times where we go, okay, what more? Is there more that needs to be done? Is there more that has to happen? Now, with eclipses happen in pairs. So every calendar year, we have two pairs of eclipses, okay? The last pair we had was in March. So you can actually kind of look back to March of this year to try to see like, okay, when did things start kind of shifting for me, okay? So big things that might have shifted for you in March, that flavor, it's coming back up, okay, for September. Okay, so they come in pairs. So we've got this one here, that's a lunar one with the full moon. And then we'll talk again as we get closer, but the other other part of the pair is going to happen in 2 weeks. So that happens on the 21st. And that is when we have a solar eclipse. And we'll talk about that next time. Okay. So the time in between those two eclipses is really the ripe time for knowing that you can roll with the tide of these big shifts that are available to you in your life. And just like the Tower card, which if you're in my membership, you will have seen that our card for the card of the month of September is actually the Tower. Amazing how that works. So the Tower takes things down. Okay. When the Tower happens, we have a spark of lightning hitting a tower and it's coming down. Lightning represents inspiration. It represents this moment in time where suddenly we're like, whoa, that needs to change. Okay. Now there are different ways the tower can come down. Okay. We can take the tower down brick by brick, slowly. Probably not what's going to happen during eclipse, but you could do it. We know this change has to happen. We start making the changes happen. Okay. You could have a controlled destruction. That's like when you see in the movies where, or maybe you've seen it in real life. I've never seen it in real life. I've only seen recordings of it or in the movies where they actually intentionally bring a building down using some form of detonation, right? But it's controlled. It comes down in a way that you're expecting it to come down. They purposely take it apart in a way that keeps everyone safe. People aren't there. It's controlled. And you get dust, you get debris, but you don't necessarily have chaos. Okay. It's controlled chaos. The third option is the earthquake, the flood, the fire, whatever. That is the thing that the tornado. Okay, those are our elements. Those are the ways a building could come down that we are not the ones actually making it come down. It's a force of nature that has now caused that tower to be decimated. Okay. And so when that happens, we don't feel like we're in control. But that spark had come ahead of time to say, this probably needs to change. And then we chose not to change it. So then a force of nature comes through and knocks our tower down. And then we feel blindsided. And then you're like, but were you really? Because you knew it needed to happen, right? Right. So what does this mean? Now, the eclipses happen at the nodes. The nodes of the moon are a calculated point, as in it's a mathematical equation within your chart, within the chart, the astrological chart. And so it's based on where this is going to happen, right? So the nodes of the moon tell us where these eclipses are going to happen. The nodes shift every 18 months. So in March, it was starting this Virgo Pisces axis. The last round of eclipses before this actually happened in the Aries Libra axis. If you are familiar with your astrological chart, then you'll be able to know what area of your chart is this happening in. For me, my Virgo is my 10th house, which is my house of business. The 10th house is where you're the most visible. So they like to think of it as career as well. Your place out in the open. Hence why it felt right to bring back Magical Reawakening Radio for this Virgo season, for this eclipse season, because the eclipse is happening there. Now, the South Node is currently in Virgo. And so the South Node is kind of where we're clearing things out. So when a lot of cultures will look at the nodes as dragons. And so your South Node is where the tail of the dragon is, and that's sweeping out. We're clearing out with our tail. And then the North Node is in Pisces. Now for me, the Pisces house for me is my house of home, because that's the exact bottom. So that's like your rootedness. That's where where the foundation of your life is. So that's the house of home. And so then the dragon head would be focused on where is the spotlight, where is the attention, because that's where it's eating. That's where the fire comes out of its mouth. That's where we're really focused on. The dragon focuses in that space where its head is. Okay. And so wherever Pisces node or whatever Pisces house is your house, that's where you can bring some attention to what's going on. And that means that it's a chance to kind of take assessment and make improvements, versus a clearing out is making improvements, but it's like, okay, what don't I need anymore that I had there before? Okay. What can be gotten rid of? What is no longer serving me in this house? Versus like the North Node, it's more like, hey, what is working? Where am I spotlighting? What am I excited about, right? What do I need to focus on here in this space and to bring more excitement to it? Okay. And so that's the two houses. So if you're familiar with your own chart, then you'll be able to look at those and be able to actually make some sort of idea of how this eclipse is going to impact you. If you're going to go and pull up your chart, you need to know where you were born and you need to know the time of birth. If you have those two things, then you can actually get your natal chart very easily. Astroseek.com. That is probably the most tried and true option out there for getting your birth chart. And then you can find out where the eclipse is happening in your own chart. And then you can actually use that to make an impact on what is going on. Also, if you would like, I do have a workbook that I created that is available. I will link to it so that if you wanted to have a step-by-step guide on how to actually find which house, a step-by-step on a little bit more in depth on what this eclipse could mean and how it's tied to Virgo and Pisces, what tarot cards it's associated with, all of that. You can get that workbook from me. I love it. It also has some journal prompts and it has a tarot spread that you can use. That's the tarot spread I used. So, why do I do a tarot spread? Let's talk about this. I am what I consider a hobby astrologist. I'm not going to pull up my chart when it comes to an eclipse and understand what the cosmos is impacting on me personally with this eclipse. I think of astrology more as the general understanding of what's going on around me, but I don't dig deep into the happenings using astrology because it's just not a language that I speak fluently. Instead, what I love to do is I like to pull tarot cards in tandem with knowing what's going on. So I have a tarot spread that I've created that I then can go, okay, what's being cleared out of my house of business? What am I paying attention to in my house of home? How can I best utilize this in these ways? Okay. So for me, when I did this, when I pulled a card for that, I pulled the Three of Swords for my business one. Let's just talk about that, right? So I pulled the Three of Swords when I said, what am I clearing out in my house of business? And so the Three of Swords showed up. So for me, that means that I'm clearing out this whatever hurt that I think that I'm going to come up against when I talk about things that have to do with astrology and tarot and human design, and talk about these things that is sometimes still are a little bit like different. Okay. It's different than what I used to do. It's a different thing. it's becoming more popular, but it's still not the norm to talk about these things. It's not a normal career, I guess you could say, right? And while I know that that's not necessarily true, I know there are people who this is their livelihood, and I am excited to make it my livelihood as well, right? Um, Obviously, there's still a little bit of holding myself back and a little bit of fear occasionally when it comes to, but what are people going to think? What are they going to say? Is it going to hurt me? How am I going to feel? What am I going to do when somebody disagrees with me, right? So the Three of Swords is this idea that thoughts and words can cause us emotional pain, okay? And so knowing that I can clear that out in this eclipse cycle, in when it comes to my business and how I show up in the world, then it means that I can use this time, this really potent time in between the eclipses and all of September, to actually dig into the shadow work behind it, or the journaling, or catch myself if I choose not to write something I really want to write about and go, wait, we can let that go, and then work through breathing and seeing how to let all that go, right? So that is where it's really helpful to understand the astrology, what's going on. Oh, this is the energy I can work with. And then the tarot, which gives me my actual actionable things that I get to do, right? So I've combined the two for myself, and then I wanted to share it with you so that you too could take advantage of this beautiful time of year. Yes, 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 my dears. I know it can feel scary. I know it can make us feel a little bit unsure and unhappy. And yes, but also it is a beautiful opportunity if we take advantage of it. Okay? So I urge you to take advantage of it. I am going to keep talking about tarot and astrology for eclipse season. I will come back in 2 weeks and have my next episode, and just before the um, solar eclipse, and so we'll talk about how the lunar eclipse went. I will be talking about it on my Patreon. I have multiple tiers available there, including a free tier, and then I have a couple paid tiers. I'll be talking about it on all of those tiers as well. And this month, my reading that I am focusing on for other people that is available on my website is a reading specific to the eclipse season. And so if instead of giving yourself a reading, you are more inclined to receiving a reading, paying for a reading for someone else to read your cards and tell you the things that maybe you're not always wanting to hear from yourself, because I promise every reading I do is really filled with things you probably already know, but don't necessarily have the language to unlock within yourself. If you're wanting that, I have a special eclipse reading for this month. So, all of those things. Now, I'm going to wrap up with a card pull, because why not? So, let's pull a card, because I like the idea of wrapping up this podcast with a reading. So, let's pull a single card on how can we make the most of this beautiful eclipse that is going to happen on Sunday, September 7th. And our card we pulled is the Hanged Man, which is absolutely beautiful. The most beneficial thing we can do is to sit with the energy. We are not going to strive. We are not going to push. We are not going to run away. We are going to sit with it. We are going to talk with it. We are going to allow it to be. Because you know what happens when we allow ourselves to sit with the energy? We get to understand it better, and we get to move forward in a way that is most beneficial to us, because we understand what shifts need to happen. So as we approach this eclipse, sit with the energy, sit with the juicy goodness as it comes up, and allow yourself to understand how it feels for you. I am sending you off with so much love and magic as always, and I cannot wait to talk with you next time. Bye for now.